You know, the first time that happened to me was a long time ago. So inside this hole in the side of the refrigerator were these little rollers, these electric rollers. And when you press the button, they would go ding and release the latch of the door. Well, I thought it would be interesting to stick my finger in there when the door was open. And so I stuck my finger in that hole, and it latched on my finger because it thought my finger was the latch of the door. And it grabbed my finger and went like that inside of the refrigerator. And my finger was jammed inside this fucking hole in the refrigerator. And I'm screaming, and my mother comes in and sees me stuck like that, and she starts screaming. So now we're both screaming in the kitchen. My mom is panicking. She doesn't know what to do. My finger's stuck in the refrigerator latch, and I'm screaming. And so what does she do? She calls up the neighbor fellow. She says, my little Stewart's finger is stuck in the fridge. It is funny. I mean, it's totally funny to think back today. Today it's totally hilarious. But then it was serious business. I was panicking and my fingers jammed inside this fucking thing. And so my mom's running around screaming, and supposedly the neighbor's on his way over to help because he doesn't know what's going on. All he hears is my mom screaming and me screaming in the background. And I think his name was Paul. He was an older man. I distinctly remember that he had a pilot's license and he flew a small airplane. He took me up in his small airplane one time. Anyway, he comes over and he evaluates the situation. I remember him standing behind me in the kitchen. My mom's running around screaming, and I'm screaming, and I'm still screaming. And he's standing there like this going, well, okay, what do we do here? And how do I get this kid's finger out of the refrigerator? This is a serious problem. What does he do? The door of the refrigerator's open, right? Because there I am with my finger stuck in the latch. He walks around to the back side of the door and presses the green button on the door, and it goes, and out comes my finger, just like that. My mother wouldn't, she was panicking so much she would never ever think of pushing the button on the door to release the latch. The latch thought my finger was the door, and it latched on my finger. It was horrible. I'm surprised I still have a finger that even looks remotely normal to this day.
Why is Mando a perfect name for a mortician?
Doesn't it sound just kind of an... But I don't know. I've never known anybody else named Mando. Never met him. I heard a person, never name in literature or any place else as a first name Mando. And then, of course, the topper was his last name, Tonini. So it all kind of went Mando Tonini. He was a expert mortician. He would be the mortician that people would bring the body of somebody who would be badly murdered or mutilated in a car wreck. And almost like The Godfather. You know, I don't know if you remember that. There was a mortician scene in The Godfather. That mortician was more comical. The Mando was like serious as a heart attack, you know. You never heard him crack a joke or smile. He just kind of had this kind of gray, ashen skin, and you know, balding, top bald, and had hair on the side, but very short. Always in a suit and tie. Never saw him casually, and so he just had this kind of, just the perfect mortician. And we would go, and in those days, Italian wakes lasted a week. You'd go every day for a week, and you'd sit, and he had this kind of old Victorian house that he turned into his mortuary. And he had when you sat in the room, you'd sit in the main room where they had the casket at the front. Right off to the side, there was a stairway, and it went down into Mando's office in the basement. And we didn't know, that was off limits to us kids. And it was always dark down those stairs, and we never went down there. And the adults would always threaten us if we didn't behave, that we'd have to go downstairs and see Mando. And you could hear a pin drop. I mean, you never saw more well-behaved children in your, I mean, probably all had to have therapy about, in our dreams we see this staircase and down at the bottom, it's dark and we have to go visit Mando. So when my dad died, Mando was still in business. And I had to go down those stairs to Mando's office to talk to Mando with my mother and my brothers and sisters to pick out the coffin. Down in that basement was not only his desk, but his displays, his coffin displays, or his little boxes if you were going to be cremated. But it was his whole, it was the mortician's office. So later in life, I got to actually go down and sit at Mando's desk and negotiate. You would negotiate the cost of the funeral. You know, what you want, how much did you want to spend, and how expensive of a box do you want, and do you want a liner, and all this kind of horseshit, you know. I don't know, have you ever gone through it where you had to talk to the mortician at the end to buy the stuff? I mean, usually it's not that unpleasant, but in this case, because as a child they built up this going down the stairways and see Mando, it still remained a little terrifying, but as an adult you think differently about things, of course, so I've gotten over it. I'm okay now.
Ode to Mark Medoff. I got to be a playwright in residence at New Mexico State because I think mainly I was dating one of Mark's ex-students, and she put in a good word for me, and before I knew it, I was down at New Mexico State putting on my play Flying. He gave me a director who we all called Will the Thrill, and Flying was about a guy who felt that if we could dream about flying, why couldn't we do it in real life? Only every time he jumped, he kept injuring himself more and more. I remember running down a hallway and Mark looking back at me. I was following him to one of his classes, and he says, it's like Yogi Berra says, plays are never over till they're over. Okay, that's wisdom. And then I watched Mark do his thing. And when Flying was produced at New Mexico State, Mark jogged to the theater from his home, and I could tell he was in the audience because there was particular parts in the play that I guess were humorous. And I heard what it sounded like somebody running over a frog in the road. It was going, and I looked down, and it was Mark laughing. He found my play humorous, or what was happening, and there he was laughing. Next time he saw me, I was putting on a play at Albuquerque Little Theater called Murder at the Little Theater, where we wandered the audience in and out of the theater, and then eventually we put a play on stage, and I played a parking lot attendant who helped the detective in the second act solve the crime. I'm standing there in the parking lot, and Mark and his entourage pulls in, about time the play was supposed to start or later, and he takes one look at me, and here I just the year before been in his playwriting and had a play done at New Mexico State, and he takes this look at me, and I could just tell how crestfallen he was looking at me, seeing that my life had been reduced to me being a parking lot attendant. And I had to say to him, Mark, it's my play. I wrote it. I'm just playing this part. Oh, he says, and he goes in and watches the play. And in Act 2, when we're passing out whodunit sheets, he grabs me by the pant leg and pulls on it. And, Jeff, who's the murderer? Come on, tell me, who's the murderer? Because he thought he had an in.